What I can say for sure you can change out, and this team has success down the road, is you need to take a bunch of the players that are on this team and get them off of this team, and then bring in a bunch of new players that are better. Welcome into the Hot Read podcast for Monday, November the 20th. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BrawleySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I'm joined as always by producer JT, who you can follow on social media at JT_Runky. JT, I was sitting here prepping the show, and you text me, Easton, I'm not trying to rush you, but the mob is at our doorstep. There were plenty of you in the comments raring to go as soon as the afternoon window of games ended when we promised we would start. Here we are. Are you ready for today's episode, JT?
Yeah, like I was saying, we didn't put a exact timestamp on today's episode, but I put it at 6:45 because I was like, the games will be over around ish that time, and then right. I hop in at like 6:45 ish, and they're the mob, the masses, like are storming the castle, with flame torches and pitchforks right now. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of.
Are you excited?
I mean, I'm always excited, Okay.
You root for the chaos in life, so I understand
I do,
that a little
yes.
bit. Right, yeah. Okay, well, today we'll have plenty of chaos. We're, of course, recapping Titans-Bengals was a...
Titans-Jags.
Titans-Jags. Wrong cat. Yeah, it was a beatdown. It was not close. It was gross. It was, I would say, the worst game of the Titans season, but that Browns game still did happen. So not quite the worst, but right up there in that class. And I know a lot of you have a lot of thoughts on what this team needs to do in the comments. Kyle, Derek, Joey, D. Good, Evan, AJ, Jordan, Kenneth, already in here, getting ready for today's show, sharing your thoughts, which we really appreciate. Kenneth, he already knows. He's a fan of this show for long enough to know what's about to happen. He said Easton's going to be the Jon Snow meme, drawing the lone sword against the Stampede for Vrabel's head. That's essentially what today's episode is. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on today's episode. I say that a lot, but genuinely today, there's not a whole lot to discuss. But we'll get to as many of your comments, questions, thoughts on today's game as humanly possible. So keep those coming. If you want to be a part of that conversation and joining us live today via TikTok, Twitter, or Facebook. If you're on those two places where we're also live right now, leave those places. Go to YouTube. Search Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. Find this live stream on the Broadway Sports Media YouTube page. And in the comment section of that live stream, so you'll be able to be a part of today's conversation and join in on the fun that we're about to have discussing this Titans team. Got to shout out our wonderful and amazing sponsors over at BoomBozz Craft Pizza and Taphouse. They do awesome work making pizzas and providing great selections of beer for you on tap. We love it there. We're there every single Thursday, except for when that Thursday happens to be Thanksgiving, like this week. They'll be closed. We'll be with our families. But after that, I don't think there's a single Thursday the rest of the year, all the way to the Super Bowl, JT, that you and I won't be there live on Thursday night before Thursday Night Football, discussing the Titans, previewing that week of games. And it is a great time. We'd love for you to come and hang out with us, watch our show, and then watch the game that evening at the bar like we always do. We hang out with whoever is there. So we'd love for you to come and grab a bite and hang out with us at BoomBozz Craft Pizza and Taphouse. Check out a location near you. All right. Let's discuss the game that was today. Titans get trounced 34-14 by the Jaguars in Jacksonville. They are now 3-7 on the year, 3-14 in their last 17 games. Full season sample size there. 0-3 on this road trip. They lost on the road to the Steelers on Thursday Night Football and then lost both of their Florida games, JT. That statistic we've been parroting the last 2 weeks, which again, is just it's not an opinion. It's a statistics. We were putting it out there. The Titans doing yeoman's work, making that number not mean anything any longer. They are doing their part to make that regress back to the mean. And so they lose both of their games in Florida. 0-3 on that road trip. 0-7 away from home so far this year. And they've also lost 5 of their last 6 games. I'm trying to remember what was the one win? Oh, the Atlanta game. The Atlanta game was their one win in there. That was fun. Remember that game, everybody? How far we have come. And with the Rams win today over the Seahawks, which for the best bet gauntlet had me screaming, jumping up and down, avoiding pulling my hair out and going crazy this afternoon. They won over the Seahawks, the Rams did, and so the Titans now sit at 6th overall in the projected draft order this year. Teams ahead of them: the Panthers, the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Bears, and the Giants. What was just up there? I missed it. What
it was a just giving the BoomBozz plug.
We love that kind of
up here.
Yeah, great place to go drown the Titans' losing sorrows or celebrate the ongoing take. Absolutely, 100%. I support that message. But yeah, the Titans keep inching their way up that projected draft board. And as long as they continue to lose, they're continuing to rise up and up and up. And they play one of those teams next week. And so it'll be a one of, if not our first tank bowl of the season next week between the Titans and the Panthers at home. Will be interesting to talk about that one later in the week. Just a disclaimer while I'm thinking about it, by the way, because it's Thanksgiving week, kind of put it out there for folks. We are talking Titans today. We are not going to force Titans discussion on you midweek like we typically do. You're going to be with your families. It's going to be Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. And we want to get back to what is fun on this show. And what is fun for us is winning money via betting. And with the Thanksgiving slate, JT, we get a bonus game this year for our Thanksgiving special episode because they got the Black Friday game. So we've got 4 games. I've made the executive decision. I'm looping that in. We've got those 4 games to pick from. And on Wednesday, we're going to have our second ever Thanksgiving betting special episode of the Hot Read podcast. It's a best bet gauntlet Thanksgiving episode. Last year, I believe we went 11-7 and won 4 units on Thanksgiving. Looking to do that again this year and bolster our best bet gauntlet overall standings for the season. So can't wait to discuss all things betting on Wednesday and no things Titans on Wednesday. That'll be a nice little reprieve. And then we'll be back on Friday, I believe. On Black Friday, we'll be discussing the Titans and the Panthers. So that's our schedule for the week. Now back to this game. Some statistics that I feel are necessary to run through here. The Titans were outgained or outdone in pretty much every statistical category in this game, as one might imagine. The Jaguars outpossessed them 36 minutes to 23 minutes, doubled their first downs, had a better 3rd and 4th down efficiency. Or excuse me, not better 4th down efficiencies. The Titans were 1 for 1, but we'll talk about this in a minute. The Jaguars went 3 for 4 on 4th downs. The Titans should have at least attempted 2 4th downs. One could very easily argue they should have attempted 3 4th down conversions, and they chose to punt on both of those, giving the Jaguars drives where they went and scored on both of those possessions. The Jaguars' total yards of offense, here we go. No, that's passing yards. I lost the number. JT, can you pull this up for me?
Yes, I got you.
I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Okay, I thought it was in my notes. It's not my notes. I want to detail the total yards of offense because that's pretty staggering. But another number that I think is meaningful in this game and wasn't the difference in the game, but largely could have been the difference in the game, depending on if this hadn't gone this way, things probably would have gone a little bit differently. 14 points the Titans allowed on turnovers to the Jaguars. As Mike Vrabel put it in the post game, they're not in a position as a team to be able to do that and win ball games. They simply cannot do that. They gave up, again, 14 points to a Jaguars team that coming into this game were only +1 in turnover differential so far this season. JT, what was the yardage differential for me?
The total yardage differential today was 389 for the Jacksonville Jaguars to 235 for the Tennessee Titans.
Thank you. Yeah, so it was a sloppy day penalties wise. The Titans as well, 7 for 66 for the Titans, as the Jaguars only gave up 4 penalties for 29 yards. And one more number I'd like you to find me, JT. What was the total yardage and number of sacks on Will Levis today? I think that's important to pair.
Actually, honestly, not terrible. 2 for 15 today.
Okay, 2 for 15. Yeah, so we'll have the pressure number out tomorrow, and that will tell more of the tale because he certainly was pressured on the majority of his dropbacks today. He had a lackluster day, but again, really not super his fault, right? 13 for 17, 158 yards, 9.3 yards on average, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and like you said, 2 sacks for 15 yards. The number one thing the Titans are doing right now, and this is one of my main points, and it's not a lot to elaborate on, but it's just the truth. The Titans continuing to make meaningful evaluations of Will Levis impossible because of the way that they're playing these games and how they're just crumbling around him. It remains the most infuriating unforgivable, unacceptable thing that they're doing right now, and it's really not close, right? That is the number one thing that they're doing right now that is instilling rage in my heart, making me infuriated with every passing minute that I have to sit and watch this team trying to figure out what they have and a guy that could be their future franchise quarterback, and they just can't put things around him to give him a fair shot. Because again, today the numbers are lackluster, but no one's pointing to him and saying he's the reason the Titans lost this game. Of course not. He's at the very, very, very bottom of the list of reasons why. It was everything around him being a complete and utter disaster. And we're going to discuss some of that here in a minute, but that's a really big deal, and it's really, really frustrating. Another number for you, by the way, if you felt like the Titans, talk about not giving Will Levis a chance to do anything. He didn't run many plays. The Jaguars had 69 nice offensive plays today. They ran 69 plays. The Titans only ran 38, right? So literally doubled up the number of offensive plays. The Jaguars not only did a great job of scoring, but they did a fantastic job of marching up and down the field, burning clock, especially in that second half, not giving the Titans many possessions, many chances to come back in the game, really snuffing them out. And that's a credit to them. But the Titans defense, a lot of talk this past week about what the Titans defense has and hasn't been this season, JT. We can, I think, pretty firmly say that in this game, the offense was not off the hook by any means, but the defense did not do enough in this game for the Titans to win. You can't allow 34 points, and you can't, really, it was more than the total points, and in the sense that it felt like every time the Jaguars had the ball, if they wanted to get to the end zone, they could. They really didn't provide any resistance, and that's why we can talk about the fourth downs here. 2 4th-and-1 situations in their own territory, granted, for the Titans. Mike Vrabel on both instances down multiple touchdowns at the time, choosing to punt the ball away with Ryan Stonehouse and not go for it. Stupid, dumb, cowardly decision, playing not to lose. Really, really stupid. You're down multiple touchdowns. You've got nothing to lose as a team. You need to win this game to make your playoff chances really reasonably viable this season. And so you needed to lay it all out there and play like you had nothing to lose, because you did have nothing to lose. And they continued to give the ball back to the Jaguars. What made it even more frustrating was not only were they choosing to give the ball back to the Jaguars in a cowardly way and playing not to lose way, but they were doing it after the Jaguars had already proven that they were going to move the ball relatively easily against your defense, in particular against your secondary, that they were going to score points if you gave them back the ball. Like that was a likelihood. And in both instances, they did. I don't remember if it was 10 points on those 2 punts or 14 points. Either way, I know they got at least 1 touchdown and they scored on both instances. So a bad look, a bad decision from Mike Vrabel, reflective of an outdated philosophy. And I get it. I understand from his perspective. This offense has given him no reason to have any faith in them to convert. And he's not wanting to give the Jacksonville offense back the ball in such great situation and put his defense in such a bad situation, right? I get that. But situationally, the circumstances dictate there. You can't do that. And I know that pretty much everybody watching was frustrated by those decisions. I want to shout out a thought to try to get all of this into a 10,000 foot view here for us and kind of wrap it all up before we turn to the comments. Our buddy Stoney, friend of the show, viewer of the show, repeat guest on the show, Stoney Keeley, fantastic work. Free shout for him. So Bros Network, go check out his stuff. He tweeted earlier today, and I felt like this was greatly encapsulating of where this Titans team is right now. He said the Titans have 2 glaring weaknesses that teams are going to key in on until they get better. One is allowing pressure on the quarterback. The Titans are doing that with regularity. And number 2 is allowing explosives on defense. The Titans defense is allowing you to get chunk plays on a drive-by-drive basis. This is going to be every game until teams are proven otherwise, until the Titans prove that they can't do that to them. Adjusting expectations and maybe going for a walk instead of watching is a good idea, according to Stoney in his tweet, which I completely understand. And so folks are going to reasonably be frustrated and angry about this and demand change, right? That's where we are right now. It's the Titans have to change something. Something has to change. This is the mob's call. This is their cry right now, and it's reasonable and it's understandable. And as we talked about last week, the natural cycle of fanhood mobs, of fandom mob hunting down the Frankenstein in their town is one of 3 individuals in an NFL franchise. It is your head coach, your quarterback, or your GM. The Titans just recently switched off their quarterback. You can't come after Ryan Tannehill any longer, and Will Levis doesn't deserve to be come after even by the most irrational Titans fan right now. I'm not seeing anybody, luckily, JT, so far. Maybe I'm sure this will change because people are crazy. I'm not seeing anybody saying Levis is the problem here. So it's not Levis. Can't come after the quarterback. Can't come after the GM because Rand's been here for 10 seconds. He had SpongeBob's, potato chip, lint, and a paper clip to work with this past offseason. Was very hamstrung in terms of the assets and money at his disposal. And what he did with what he had has been fine. It's been ups and downs, but it's been largely fine. So that leaves the head coach, right? That leaves Mike Vrabel. And that's, of course, where folks are right now. They are calling for his job loudly, louder than it's ever been for Mike Vrabel. He was even asked about it in his post-game press conference by somebody else in the media pool today. And that's where we are. That's where we are. I know we're about to discuss all of it in the comments. I know a lot of you disagree with me on this. And so we can have that discussion now, but I want to put out my initial thought, my opening statement on this. Right. And then we can have that discussion. This cry that something has to change. I agree. Something has to change. Something has to change. You know what has to change with this team for them to get better, JT? Some would argue it needs to be Mike Vrabel. And maybe that's the case. Maybe. We can't say for sure you change out Mike Vrabel and down the road this team has success. What I can say for sure you can change out and this team has success down the road is you need to take a bunch of the players that are on this team and get them off of this team and then bring in a bunch of new players that are better to play on this team. Like that's the change that has to be made. You need a bunch of new guys. And I want us to visualize two levers, right? Like maybe like on a soundboard, like a dial, you go up and down, one high or low, like a thermometer, a temperature gauge, right? And you have coaching and you have player personnel execution, right? They both are down here right now. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. They're both not doing well. They're both turned down real low. Theoretically, you can change Mike Vrabel coaching down here low into whatever your personal idea of the perfect coach for this Titans team right now, the guy that would get the most juice out of the squeeze with this current situation. Okay, so we turn that coaching dial up all the way. We get that best guy in there, and you've still got what you've got, player personnel. What's the increase? Is it 25% better team? 30% better performance? Like what? How much more are you getting out of this squad? Okay, it's marginal, but it's some, right? Okay, so let's turn coaching back down. It's still Vrabel. You still got Vrabel, but you turn the player personnel execution dial all the way up, right? You get rid of the bums on this team. You add a bunch of guys that can ball. What's the ceiling there? It's 300, 400, 500% better than what the Titans are currently doing. Like that's the solution. You've got to get new guys. And as I'm not going to force everybody to listen to me parrot all of the things that I said about Mike Vrabel and his hot seat last week, but I'm here to tell you all of those thoughts I had then, they still apply now. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Mike Vrabel is not a great coach. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. What I'm going to say though, is this situation is not coaching right now. This situation is this roster plainly and obviously sucks. And I've had some folks push back on me like this team's 3-14 in their last 17 games. They're not that bad. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Like, look, use your eyeballs. Watch. They are so clearly and obviously that bad. Now, am I saying that everybody on the team is this? No, of course. There are some really good players on this team. Really, really good. But football is a team sport. It requires 22 individuals on either side of the ball and specialists in order for you to not have any holes that other teams can exploit. And this Titans team, while they're not terrible top to bottom, the quantity and quality of the holes on their roster are thus that they have real issues each and every week, that they aren't going to really get this ship to sail. It's going to sink. Like they've got too many cannonball gouges in the side of their ship of such a diameter that teams are running right through them. Teams are throwing right through them. Teams are defending them with ease. Teams are scoring so many more points than them, and it's not that difficult. Like that's where this team is at right now, and that is a player personnel execution situation. And because of that, Mike Vrabel, who is a solid, good coach at worst, as demonstrated by the 6 years he's been here. Don't be a prisoner of the moment. Try to take your fan brain hat off for a minute and look at what he's done. Okay, he came in inherited a Titans team that had 9 wins, had 2 consecutive 9-win seasons after that. I think everybody agreed in those seasons he was doing more with less in those seasons, right? Some of those Marcus teams were tough, but they won 9 games. Then he had 2 really good seasons. What was it, 11 and 12 wins the next 2 seasons, and won the division twice. And then now he's on last season, started out really strong, fell apart down the back half of the stretch, largely due to injuries and lack of talent. And then this season, he's having a downright bad season with a downright bad roster, right? So taking his career, that whole thing, as the whole of its parts, the sum of its parts, he is at worst, solid to good coach, right? That's really hard to come by in the NFL. Can you do better? Sure, you can do better. Sure, you can. Are you going to if you fire him and go hire somebody else? Ben Johnson being thrown around. And listen, I love Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Lions. See, dude's a baller. I'm looking forward to him getting a head coaching opportunity. I like what he's doing. But if you want to look at his resume right now as a coordinator, as a play caller, it's practically a carbon copy of one Mr. Adam Gase. And we saw how that turned out. That's just one of thousands of instances, thousands of what's the word I'm looking for? Examples. There we go, Easton. Examples that I can point to and say the grass is so often not greener on the other side with head coaching. You got to play the numbers here. And Mike Vrabel is a good coach. That is why I'm not saying he's untouchable. I'm not saying he's infallible. I started the show today, JT, did I not? Saying that that was very bad. He did some bad things. It's inexcusable. I'm frustrated. Like this is the binary. We're always talking about how the internet forces binaries on us and tries to convince our brains, our malleable little monkey brains, that it's one thing or another. It's X's or O's. It's O's and ones, right? In reality, there's a gray area. And the binary of the week right now for Titans fans is, will you either, with coaching in the NFL, it's either you're happy with the guy and you're cheering him on, and you're like, this guy rocks, or he needs to be fired. It's one of those, either he's doing well or he needs to be unemployed. Like, that's the binary that's being pushed on us right now. I don't understand this idea that you can't criticize a coach like really heavily, be really frustrated with what he's doing in certain situations, and also recognize, I don't think firing this guy is best for the long-term to near-term future of this franchise. That's where I'm at with this team, with this guy. And I have more thoughts, but I know folks have been just peppering me in the comments. Should we go one by one here and discuss what the folks have to say? And I'm not here. I'm gonna try my best today not to tell you that you're wrong and you're stupid. Now, you might be wrong and stupid. I don't know what you've had to say, but if your general opinion is that you think Mike Vrabel is not the best case for this team, I'm not saying that's a crazy, like there's an argument there. I just don't think it's the winning one. It's just my opinion. That's all. So let's go through them, JT.
Yeah, let's go through these. I'm going to do my best as the hive mind is shooting out opinions left and right.
Moderate for us. Thank you.
Yes, I'll be the moderator in this debate, this one-sided, at least picture debate here.
There's more of them, but it's also my show. So it's like, it balances out.
And so we'll go for first one here, kind of from what you were saying. Joey Turner says every player on this defense outside of Simmons, Tart, and Al-Shaair for the most part could be cut tomorrow and no one would notice. I think that's a little strong, but the idea is
very strong, Joey, and he knows it too.
The
idea, you got a very good punter, you got a very good kicker, you've got some great
on the defense, he said.
Oh, he's saying just on defense.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Now, who are the 3 he said?
He said Simmons, Tart,
Al-Shaair,
and Al-Shaair. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's not true. I mean, I'm with you now. It's a little strong. I get what he's saying though, in terms of the impact player element of things. There's not been a lot of impact players recently. So like, I'm not going to sit here and push back on you there, Joey, that the defense in particular today did not do enough.
Yeah. And D Good comes in and says, when are we going to have a serious conversation about firing someone? The Bills did it, and their offense looked pretty good today. This
is some on paper research right here. This is a D Good's either being a troll or he didn't watch the games. You cannot point to what the Bills. First of all, Ken Dorsey, everybody agreed before today, he was a scapegoat, right? Like that, he was not the issue there. They fire him today, and who's the name?
Joe Brady.
Joe Brady takes over, right? Today, they played the Jets, a defense that is good, don't get me wrong, but an offense that can't do anything. And against a team like the Bills that's just going to offensively overpower you, that was a pretty predictable result. We predicted it in the best bet gauntlet. Like, that was not going to be that close of a game. And the Bills are high-powered. They have players that are good, and they got great field position multiple times today. That is That's a ridiculous comparison. I'm not saying that means the Titans should never fire anybody, but that's a silly way of putting it. We are talking today, to your original question, when are we going to talk about it? We're talking about it today. Who should be fired when, who, and where. Now, I think he's alluding to the coordinators, right? Because that's a lot of the talk you hear about today is like Mike Vrabel, he didn't even hire good coordinators. Pause. He has two former coordinators who are both head coaches in the NFL currently. That's number one. Number two, his current defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen, was a bum at first when he had bad players. And then there was an offseason where all of you all called for his head incessantly for months. And Mike Vrabel essentially at the podium said, no, it's not the coaching, it's the players. I'm banking on that. And then went out and got a bunch of new defensive players. And then suddenly, for 2 years, oh, we like Shane Bowen. Look, he's turned it around. He's got it figured out now that he's got some decent players. Crazy how that works, right? This season, not a ton to defend. Like there's some real confusion with what he's doing. Like I totally get wondering, is he maybe not great? Like there's something to that, I think, but again, it's one season. He's coming off of 2.5, 3 years now where you were content with him and the product he was putting out there. He has a down year with the secondary that I don't think any of us would deny is very bad, right? Like this secondary is very, very bad and they're playing very, very bad. I think it's the defensive front that people are like, okay, what's the deal? Like you need to get more out of those guys. And that's a fair criticism. That's a fair critique. I'm with you on that. Ackerman, everybody agrees is a bum. Like this is not new. Like this is I'm with you. He should have fired him years ago. Ackerman's no good. He does less with more consistently on the special team side of things. Oh, Tim Kelly. If y'all are coming for Tim Kelly if you're using Tim Kelly as a reason why you're trying to prove Vrabel hires bad coordinators and should go. No, man. No, Tim Kelly's doing the things. We've said this last week. It's not Tim Kelly. It's not Tim Kelly. He is doing the best with what he can do. Okay, so like relax on Tim Kelly. That's a bad take. I won't dive into that rabbit hole because we'd be here for another 30 minutes. But yeah, what's the next comment we have, Jason?
Next one. This is kind of a two-parter from two different people, kind of saying the same thing here.
Okay.
Kind of to what you're saying on both sides of the ball. The reason why these coordinators can't really do this is because, as Kyle says, this is what happens when your GM whiffs on the entire draft.
Absolutely,
3
Kyle.
Straight years.
Yep.
And then AJ also chimes in here saying so much sludge needs to be clean. Hopefully, Ryan has a plan and knows how to evaluate talent because the last guy did not.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of those things. Next comment. Good takes, boys.
Yeah, and then Joey is in here again saying not upset with the loss, expected the loss, basically wanted to lose for the tank, but man, can we at least look decent in losing? They looked awful all around the league. So many teams move the ball, make explosive plays on both sides of the ball, have their hiccups, but can go play ball week in and week out. These Titans make the game look so hard. And I agree with him because when you get down to it, the only reason that the Titans scored today was on 2 trick plays that you should not have to rely on to move the ball more than 5 seconds. I don't think I actually tweeted this, but I thought about it many times because I was going to, and then all of a sudden Will Levis actually threw it downfield. But I swear to God, I did not see Will Levis from like the middle of the first quarter to like the end of the third quarter throw the ball 5 yards downfield to it. He did. He didn't have a constantly, chance to. It was constantly screen passes and trying to move that move horizontally to move vertically.
Yeah, and was that Joey who had that comment?
Yes.
Yeah, Joey, I mean, I agree largely with what you're saying. Can you throw it back up there real quick, JT?
Yep.
I wanted to reference one thing.
Sorry, I'm getting to it.
No, you're good. You're good. Dead air. We love dead air. This is good programming. There we go. Yeah, so he's saying around the league, so many teams move the ball and make explosive plays on both sides of the ball. Yeah, and that's to get down to the bigger picture here. It's I think a combination of two bad things for the Titans. Feels like the players that are good enough are playing without passion, without like they're not executing at a high level. They're playing slow. They're playing like there's not juice there. Do you get what I'm saying? Like it feels like some of the better players on this team, they're like, what they've got, they're capable of it. And you're just like, what do you do? Like, wake up. You play it with some juice, and they're not playing with juice. Then the other half of the team is guys that just don't have it. Guys like in the secondary and on the offensive line are the two groups that come to mind. They get exposed each and every week like clockwork. just run through the ringer. With those guys, I see effort. I just see shortcomings. I see serious limitations. And so it's that combination of things that is really not working for this team right now. And that's why it looks like not only are they bad, but it's more than that. Like Joey's saying, it's that they look like they're listless, like they're adrift at sea, and they've lost confidence in themselves. They've lost confidence in each other. Now, the way that they talk, I don't think that's the case, because they seem pretty in unison about the fact that that's not the case. And usually you could argue the teams lie, players lie. Yes. But when things are really going poorly, like with the Jets locker room situation, for example, there's always like some things start to leak. It starts to, that unified front, that message starts to leak oil a little bit. We've not had that with the Titans yet. So I'm holding off on that so far. JT, what else do we have from the folks in the comments?
Yeah. And then a couple kind of to round it out here. I'm basically put a bow on what we've been saying here, and then we have 2 questions in here about your personal analysis on this game. Joseph says, putting my emotions aside, Mike Vrabel is a good head coach, but a terrible people person / communicator. And when a team is winning, no problem. When losing, it comes across as extremely smug. Your thoughts? So
Joseph, you're correct. If what you mean, like, to clarify, terrible people person and communicator to the public, to the media, right? Like from what we hear from players inside the building, from folks that work with Mike Vrabel inside the building, he's actually a very good people person. He's a very good communicator. We have to take their word for it, because like we don't get to know. But to us, yes, I totally get it. It's the Belichick thing, where he's Belichick and a curmudgeon and a little gremlin for 2 decades, and everyone doesn't care at all. He gets a total pass because he's winning rings every other year. That works. And then when he's not working, when things aren't going well, when they're losing, then that doesn't work, right? With Vrabel, right now, it doesn't work. It worked for a couple of years there when he was finding success and they were winning divisions and winning a ton of ball games and being exciting and doing all these things. That worked. Now it's not working as much. So I completely agree, Joseph.
Yeah, and then AJ comes back in here, like we were saying, that if this were to happen this offseason and you sign guys like Willie Gay and T. Higgins while getting a stud tackle, people will stop their complaining because right, if you'll stop complaining if you get players who actually can execute on
an obvious point from AJ, but a true one. Yes, folks will indeed be less upset about a team if that team is not as bad anymore. I agree.
And then we got a couple of questions here about your personal just thoughts on the game today and some personnel evaluation. AJ asks, Easton, how does Levis look now? And when Jalen Duncan jumped in, what's the current assessment of both?
So I'll start with Duncan. As we always say on the Sunday episode, it's really hard for us to make specific judgments or evaluations of offensive linemen. It's difficult without being able to rewatch the tape, which we'll do later in this week, and I'll have more thoughts on it probably later in the week on my social media, all of these things. But Duncan played about a half of football, right? So I think it was about a half, the second half for the most part.
Whenever Chris Hubbard went down with injury for the
right,
game.
like I mean, and that's just to a larger point. You wonder why the Titans' offensive line is so bad. Their starters were bad enough, but right now you've got, like, for the back half of that game, you had bookend tackles that are both backups, not just backups like on paper, but backup level talent at the tackle position in Jalen Duncan and Dylan Radins. You're not going to do a whole lot with that in the NFL. That's the nature of the sport. Sorry, champ. Like you got to have that key to open the lock to unlock all the other things that you want to do. With Levis, like I said at the top of the show, AJ, it's infuriating because he didn't look. I mean, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, threw a couple of turnover-worthy plays, didn't push the ball downfield a whole lot, but was trying a little bit too hard in the first half, actually, I would argue, because he's felt like some of those pressures early on he was bringing on himself, being either indecisive or just taking too long with the ball. You can't say he's indecisive without seeing the all 22, because some of those plays where he held on to it, there may have been nobody down there, in which case he needed to escape or throw it away or like live to see another down. So there's some of that. And I'm curious to see on the tape whether it was a processing thing more or a really good coverage thing. But that's the kind of thing where I'm mostly frustrated coming away from this game, because they didn't give us a very good chance to evaluate Levis. He didn't throw a ton of passes, and he didn't do a whole lot in terms of complexity downfield. He wasn't given the chance to do a whole lot, and that's really frustrating.
Yeah, and then Jordan Lowry brings up a point here saying, any word on Kyrus Jackson, that being, and when he will be back, and if he can't come back, why not use Mason Kinsey? Obviously referring to the woes of the special teams once again, where another punt was fumbled, but it wasn't Kyle Phillips this time. It was Eric Guerra indeed.
Yeah, the word that I've heard is that you shouldn't be holding your breath on Kyrus Jackson coming back anytime soon. Probably not this season, but certainly not anytime soon. Is what I've heard, that the knee is a serious situation, and that it'll be next year probably for him. If he can't come back, which it sounds like he can, according to what I've heard, why not use Mason Kinsey? It's because it takes up a roster spot at a position that they like other guys there, and Eric Guerra, they felt like, and maybe probably still feel like, I guess, can do that job pretty well. I mean, to Guerra's credit, that was the first mistake he's had in doing this job for 2 or 3 weeks now. It's a big mistake. You can't have it. And he's also just not a great player in general. He's a limited player. So yeah, that's the reason why.
And then finally, Kenneth going to finish us off here with a bow, because he always has to with
Hit me,
you.
Kenneth. Hit me.
He says, is there anything Vrabel could do that would change your opinion on him, or is personnel going to be the excuse all the way to the end of this season?
No, totally. So it's a fair question. And I mean, Kenneth, if you really were paying attention, you know the answer, because last week I gave the long-term answer, and I had folks, I'm trying to find where I had a back and forth with some folks on this subject, and one guy basically said he said it's getting weird how much you're being loyal to Vrabel. It's not a loyalty thing. I don't have a loyalty to Mike Vrabel. I just use my eyes and try to come up with my opinions as objectively as possible as to what I think should and shouldn't be, right? Just form my opinion on things. And on this topic, my opinion remains that firing Mike Vrabel is bad for the long-term success of this team. It would be a foolish decision. So some thoughts, like I said on Twitter, the players on this team obviously suck, but fire Vrabel. That's the fix here, very sarcastically. Got a response that basically was pushing back on the idea that Vrabel doesn't deserve any blame. And my response to that was that Vrabel has been very frustrating recently. Like I said last week, there's no denying he's done some really frustrating things. He's done some things that I think are dumb. Saying that firing him is a poor decision right now is in no way saying that he's great, that he's doing an awesome job. It's admitting that nobody, not him nor anybody else, is going to make, sorry, JT, chicken salad out of this chicken you-know-what squad. I don't understand why that's so hard to understand. And just trying to make sure I didn't misquote anybody here, just to be fair. Yeah, so your question, Kenneth, is there anything he can do to change my mind? Like I said last week, I will change my mind on if he is deserving of staying in this role or not, best for this team right now or not, once he's given some more to work with, right? And so, like, it's the whole less with more thing. If he's doing less with more, then I will change my opinion. This season, it's going to take him consistently doing things that are just like screaming incompetence, screaming like outdatedness, screaming somehow I'm trying to think of a way you could do less with more with this roster and feel like, well, this roster should be better than that and Mike Vrabel, I think, should not get the most. And the honest answer is kind of no. So I guess to answer your question, Kenneth, this season, it would take a lot for me to change my opinion of him, because next year's the year. Next year's the year for him. I'm very confident that the temperature on Mike Vrabel inside the building right now with Amy Adams-Strunk, with Rand Carthon, it's pretty lukewarm, very lukewarm compared to the temperature outside the building. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'll be very, very surprised if I am. From what I've heard, from what I've seen, from what I think is logical, I think that they all see next year as the year for him. Like, he certainly is not, he's not got a crazy long leash in 2024, by no means. And this season, he can be, I said last week, he's doing less with less right now, which is not good. He needs to be doing enough with less, right? Like, just do what you are expected to do with what you have and not less. And he's absolutely doing less. If he somehow continues to do less the rest of the season, which I think is possible, although my personal belief is that they'll get to these. I mean, I think it's going to be funny. They're going to get this. I think 5 of their last 8 games are home games. I have a feeling they're going to have some sneaky good games in there. So it's going to be random, and it's going to be like, wait, how, why, where did this team come from? And there's going to be a lot of furious winning once they're down there, at like 3-11 or whatever, 4-11, and folks are like, no more wins, and then they win a game and look awesome in doing so. I could
totally see on Christmas Eve us doing a show after they beat the Seattle Seahawks to get one more win, and people are furious that they're now out of the Marvin Harrison Jr. race or something like that because Will Levis put on the clinic. Like, that's going to happen for sure.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, if you think that the Titans aren't winning another game this season, I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy, man. doesn't it seem like a very long shot that they don't win another game? But anyways, yeah. So that's my thought on that, Kenneth. I think the rest of the season, to give you a clear and honest answer, he'd have to be really, really incompetent the rest of the season for me to change my opinion on this season, him needing to go. And long term, this year and next, I think that after the season, no matter what happens outside of something unforeseen incompetency, he's going to get next year as the year, right? You got $100 million to spend in free agency. You've got, it seems you're going to have a very high draft pick to get a couple of really nice players in here to help this team. That's going to be the more you're going to get 4 or 5 or 6 or more players that are come in next year. And you're like, these guys can work. We know they can work. We've seen them work elsewhere in the NFL, or we've seen them in college, and you got them with the 4th overall pick. And like, you need to go, like, this guy, he's going to work. A good coach makes this guy work. We know he does. And then next year, if he's not making him work, then it becomes, okay, here he's doing less with more still. And he's got more. He's doing less, and now he has more, I guess is the way you'd put it. And then it would be, yeah, like that needs to go. One more thing, Kenneth. Here's what is the most likely, most possible thing that could happen this season to change my mind on Mike Vrabel is you get something to like the dam breaks in the locker room, and you've got players, liking certain tweets on Twitter and posting cryptic things on Instagram, and in their comments to us in the locker room, dropping some things here or there that like there's discord with Vrabel. We're not crazy about the message. You get a couple players only meetings where there's like links from that meeting just disparaging the coaching and the message, like that kind of thing. The soap opera side of the NFL, that is what could theoretically happen. That could get me out on Vrabel, because if this team was out, then I'd be like, you know what? If they're out, then you've lost the room, and you can't lose the room and keep losing. Like that means you need a change, even if it's, for the best for both parties, and they go on to succeed somewhere else. Sometimes that's just what needs to, like, look at Doug Peterson in Philadelphia. He's a good coach. I don't think anybody thinks he's a bad coach. He's a good coach. The Eagles just needed something fresh. They needed something new. The locker room was divided. The front office was kind of divided on Doug Peterson. They moved on. Both teams were, I think both parties there were better for it. So that's the kind of thing that could potentially happen. I don't have a whole lot more to say on this very informal episode. JT, do we have any more comments we should discuss, or do we want to get to the news and get out of here?
No, we can just get to the news and then get out of here, I guess.
All right, let's get to producer JT with the news then. Hit me.
Yeah, let's do the AFC roundup, which is, of course, shorter because obviously saw one of the opponents today, and the other one continues their red hot winning streak here, and the Houston Texans, who beat the Arizona Cardinals 21-16, couldn't score 22 points to cash that, but we move on. But CJ Stroud continues to be the guy. Although I think
Titans fans should become like low key Texans fans this year. That's what I think they should do. This Texans team's they're fun. They're likable in my opinion. It's like it's old Texans. They've not beaten the Titans yet, and like given them that reason to hate them. You got a new head coach, new quarterback, new fun pieces. Like, it's a fun team to root for. I feel like most Titans fans would much rather see this version of the Texans go worst to first, win the division, and Jacksonville gets embarrassed. Like, that's what I think. I think next week, Jacksonville versus Houston, you're going to have a lot of Titans fans secretly or publicly pulling for the blue and red team.
Yeah, but CJ Stroud continues to work here. 27 of 37 today, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns. But the pressure is, he's fallen back down to earth a little bit with 3 interceptions on the day, making some bad decisions. But obviously, he's a rookie, so that's going to happen. Derek says he hopes they both lose, so I guess maybe ends in a tie next week. Maybe we'll have to see.
One of them has to win the division, bro. You want the Colts to win? Is that what he's saying? You heard it here first, guys. Derek, big Colts guy. He wants them to win the division.
But that brings us to the AFC South standings right now, where Jacksonville Jaguars with a win today go to 7-3. The Texans 6-4. The Colts on their bye stay at 5-5, and the Titans move to 3-7. And like you said earlier, they currently have the 6th overall pick in the NFL draft this upcoming year.
Is that it?
That's it for the standings.
No, sorry. I don't have any thoughts. No,
Alrighty.
Yep. Good for all those teams. Proud of everybody. Like, I think that's just numbers.
One little note, one little tidbit on the show that I had to include here because It just happened like less than 10 minutes ago, but after your boy Dorian Thompson-Robinson got his first ever win today, Cleveland not exactly happy or wanting to move with that, because the Cleveland Browns just signed Joe Flacco to their practice squad. So could we see Joe Flacco bring this Cleveland team on a backup. one last ride playoff
clipboard
miracle?
Jesus Flacco. It's clipboard Jesus Joe. It's gonna be what it is. It's gotta roll with DTR. Respect Joe Flacco, elite player, Super Bowl MVP ring on his finger. Don't worry about it, Joe. You had a great career, and go get that bag, baby. I'm proud of you. Get that money. I'm about it.
But it's the DTR show.
But it's gotta be the DTR show. Gotta do it.
Alrighty, and finally, let's do a best bet gauntlet roundup from today.
I hate that you told me that. That bothers me.
Right now, we're sitting on the day. We are 4-3 and 4-3-1 on the day right now, pending.
Not bad. We take those
more games right now. Currently 59-45-2. So we will see. You have the Broncos tonight. I have the Chiefs tomorrow.
Broncos currently playing. Looks like they're winning 3-0 against Minnesota as we speak.
Yes. So decent week.
At best, we could finish 6-3-1. That's our best possible outcome.
That's the ceiling right there.
All right, so let's do it. Let's win these last two games. If you're pulling for the best bet gauntlet, which you should be, come on, we make money on this show. Pulling for Denver tonight, pulling for Kansas City tomorrow. That might be a tough pill to swallow for some Titans fans.
Yes, indeed. But that's going to do it for our news today.
All right, that is producer JT with the news, and that is our show today. Appreciate all of you guys. So impassioned in the comments. My boy Tanner Sexton, what's up, sexy? He says in the comments, thinking we might win the division in 2032. Not sure yet, but looking likely. Yeah, I like that thought, Tanner. Well, set the bar low. You can only impress from there on out. And just to wrap up today's topic and the Discord here. This from Derek. He says, if he stays, referring to Mike Vrabel, no more excuses from Vrabel supporters next year. He either gets it done or he's gone. 100%. Absolutely. You can hold me to that next year. If I'm still on the y'all are wrong about Vrabel, you need to pump the brakes on Vrabel train by then. You can bring this back up. So clip it now. But yeah, I totally agree. I think that next year's the year. I've been saying it for a couple weeks already. So this is not a new opinion of mine, but next year is the year for him and for this team, and a big transition. What they do the rest of the season into the offseason, into next year, the next 18 months or so will be what defines really probably the next 5 years beyond that for the Titans, whether or not they are back to competing quickly or they are in the
doghouse.
I was gonna say the 2012, 2016 Titans, where it's just muck and mire and nastiness, and you're just lost wandering the wilderness. So a big upcoming stretch for this team. We're gonna talk about what there is to discuss about this Titans Panthers game coming up next weekend on Friday's episode. A little Black Friday episode live for you on Friday, I think, is our plan. So check us out then. And then midweek, best show of the week, I can already tell you. I'm easily the most excited about. Our Best Bet Gauntlet special. The Best Bet Gauntlet segment is taking over the entire show, baby. On Wednesday, JT and I are going to be going through our deeply researched, very meticulous, extremely sharp picks for the Best Bet Gauntlet Thanksgiving games. 3 on Turkey Day itself, and then we're lumping in the Black Friday game into that. What is it? I think it's Dolphins Raiders? Dolphins Jets on Friday night. So, and then the Thursday night game, the night game I know is really good because that's Seahawks Niners. We've got a Detroit game in there somewhere. That should be fun. I think this year's Thanksgiving slate, one of the better ones in recent memories. I'm excited about the football, and we'll be betting it on Wednesday. We went 11-7 last year, won 4 units or something. We don't do just straight bets. We do some fun parlays. We do some long shots. It's going to be a good time. We're going to research that as soon as we're done here. Up until Wednesday, JT and I are going to be hitting the books. Until then, for producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. Subscribe on Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. Get those YouTube subscriber numbers up if you can help us. It's free to you. Helps us a lot, so we consider it a personal favor. Follow us on social media at Hot Read Pod on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Until Wednesday, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. Try to enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Talk to you later.